Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of TCG Talk. Back today with another video for you all. In today's video, I wanted to be more of a discussion, more so than kind of like giving what I think 100% is the best or anything like that. Basically, the purpose of this video is to talk about Lexi and talk about her bows, and kind of how I think the meta may try to evolve as we go into Everfest. Lexi right now has three main bows. She has Death Dealer, Voltaire, and Shiver. She has there's other bows like Red Lion and stuff like that, but those are the three main bows. And as of late, or in Lexi's lifespan, the most popular, I think, and the most consistent bow has definitely been Voltaire. Right? You either can choose +1 or go again, which allows you to put constant pressure on your opponent, as well as maybe attack 2 times a turn. And on three of a kind turns, if you have lightning cards, you can even give your first attack go again. You maybe even attack 3 times on a crazy turn, right? And it's just been a really consistent thing in order to push those on hit effects when you combine it with pumps, and it's just been a really good card. Death Dealer is another one, the snapshot Death Dealer combo that a lot of people do. I'm not going to talk as much about Death Dealer today because I just don't want to add it to this conversation. I think it has its place and it's a very good deck, but it might not be pertinent to this conversation. The bow that doesn't get as much love as of late, or even in the beginning, is Shiver. Instead of giving go again, it can give +1 just like Voltaire, but it can have the choice to give dominate. The reason a lot of people were going with the Voltaire build is because you could put more pressure on your opponent. It was a little bit more aggro based and it was a little bit more consistent on what you could do. However, I want to bring just an idea. If people disagree with me, it's totally fine. But we're not going to know what's going to happen until Everfest comes out, right? But pre Everfest, with the Briar changes and with kind of aggro honestly going to the wayside a little bit, with Plunder Run getting banned, it's going to affect Katsu. It's going to affect Briar, obviously. It's going to affect Chain. It's going to affect all these aggro decks to be able to push damage over top, right? Like, I really think that the meta, at least unless Everfest completely changes it, the meta is going to go to more of a control slash mid-rangey kind of feel where you're going to have a lot of Oldheims, in my opinion, a lot of Bravos, Prism's going to be a big one. So the question is, like, how do you beat those decks without like the super aggro Plunder Run, or even like the pivot turns that you would get with like a Plunder Run? Oldheim honestly can push, or he can block 10 to 15 damage a turn without even blinking, and he'll just fatigue you out. Bravo is very efficient as well, and then Prism can be very difficult to get by, if you don't have go again and stuff like that, especially with their auras. And so, how do you do that? So, Prism might be a little bit difficult matchup for what I'm about to say, but the one thing I want to talk about today is I really think that Shiver, because of it kind of going from a high aggro to more of a control based build, I think giving things dominate with a lot of pumps may end up be, and also while also doing a lot of disruption with like Winter's Bite and stuff like that, may prove to be more useful than Voltaire. I haven't done a ton of play testing on this. I'm going to eventually. I always thought that Shiver was a little bit underutilized, but I wanted to talk about how I think with certain play patterns, because you're going to be coming into more control based matchups, more mid range based matchups, I think Shiver might end up being more viable. And I want to talk about why. So we have Voltaire over here. Great card. And we can talk about it at a different time. But for Shiver, I really think, for my Lexi decks, I usually run like all the elemental cards, right? So the Blizzard Bolts, that Chilling Ice Vein, Frostlock, I'll even sub in Flake Out, even though with a Shiver build, it's pretty redundant. So I usually don't sub in Flake Out. So I run all three of these, which all three of these have pretty good on hit effects, especially Chilling Ice Vein and Blizzard Bolt, one giving a Frostbite and the other causing the opponent to discard. And they both attack for 5 for 1 cost, 2 counting, loading it in with Shiver. And then I run some non-elemental cards like Bolt and Shot, which you give it +1, it has automatic go again. Hamstring Shot I enjoy in this disruption build because it causes their first attack to cost 1 more. So it's basically like a Frostbite token. If you have this and a Frostbite, their first attack is going to cost 2 more, if they attack first, obviously. And then Endless Arrow is the other one I run. So I run these 6 bows, and then I'll add in some other ones like Sleep Darts, one I'll sideboard in depending on the matchup. Sideboard, obviously Flake Out if I need to do that to kind of get a little bit more of a fuse mechanic. Remorseless is another big one. Just cards like that are really a Cold Wave is another big one as well. So these are the arrows I run. So my thought process with Shiver is, right, why don't we guarantee that these are going to hit every time? Because in a control matchup, unless you are really pushing out damage with Voltaire, Oldheim's gonna be able to cover you up for the most part. If you're only attacking for 5, 6, 7, maybe 8 tops, with a Weave Ice on a Chilling Ice Vein, which is still very good. If it's fuse, it gains dominate, but you're not always going to guarantee that fuse, right? In order to attack twice with Voltaire, you need at least 4 resources, unless you use like a Bolton shot that gives you reload. Unless you have something that kind of gives you a reload mechanic, most of the time you're going to be using 4 resources if you don't already have an arrow in arsenal. So it can be really taxing to get Voltaire off both times every single time. At least in my experience. Maybe I'm not playing the card correctly, but that's just me. So why not attack one time per turn, possibly two, depending on how, and we'll talk about this in a minute, um, with dominate, and the reason I like this is because when you combine these bows, and we'll just focus on the elemental bows right now, right? We'll focus on those here in a second, but like Bolton shot, when I load it in with Shiver, all I gotta do is give it +1 and it has go again, so I can fire Bolton shot for my first attack. It has go again just because of the +1 mechanic. Um, and then what I try and we're going to try to do here soon, and I've been testing it a little bit, but I want to do more definitive testing before I give you all kind of my definitive answer, is use these 3 bows, right, with Shiver, and then just have all of my non-arrow non-attack actions will be pumps. So you use cards like Ice Quake, right, +3 at red, +1 at blue, +2 at yellow. Weave Ice, right? Pulse of Volthaven, obviously it's only 1 in your deck, but so that's 7 pumps right there. And then I run blue Ice Quakes, so that's 12 pumps. Well, 3, 6, 9 pumps, 10 pumps, right? Then I run 3 Lightning Presses, so that's 13 pumps, technically. And then Electrify, which will help push through extra damage and allow me to draw a card off Arsenal, right? So why is this important? Is because so with the ice cards, particularly Ice Quake and Weave Ice, I can use these to pump my dominated attacks, right? So a red Weave Ice into a red Chilling Ice Vein dominated. Now all of a sudden I'm hitting for 8 dominate, and it's going to create a frostbite on hit. And just the fact that you can push through 4 to 5 damage per turn on an okay turn and have pretty much a guaranteed on hit effect because they can't um, attack or defend with more than one card from hand, you're basically guaranteeing an on hit effect pretty much every single turn. It's really hard for them to cover it up. Same thing with Blizzard Bolt. And if you fuse a Blizzard Bolt and then attack with an Ice Quake dominated, now you're hitting for 8 dominated. And since it's fused, whenever it hits, which it's probably going to hit, it's going to create 2 Frostbite tokens, right? So you can see like you're guaranteeing those on hit effects every time. And if you're hitting for 8 to 10 a turn dominated, you're probably pushing through, I'd say 4 to 5 damage a turn, maybe even more depending on who you're playing. Oldheim's really the only one who can cover up a lot of that. So unless they're de-reacting really, really heavily with you, it's pretty nice. And then when you combine this, right, with other cards, like you combine it with cards like Polar Blast, right, where they either have to pay 1 or it gains dominate. If they don't pay 1, then you just give it +1 with Shiver. It already is going to have dominate. You're going to draw a card off Polar Blast, so now you have more for your more resources that you need. And then you also can run cards like Winter's Bite, which will cause them to have to discard. So you're causing them to discard, you're causing them to have to pay resources before you attack, and then you attack with a high dominated attack for 8 or so, right? Some people will talk about, maybe one thing about Weave Ice is like it's already going to give dominate if you fuse it. Well, you don't always have 2 ice cards in your hand, so why not have a guaranteed dominate +3, and then fuse it for the effect? So it's going to hit for 8, right? And there's turns where you're going to hit, an Ice Quake into a Weave Ice. Maybe you want to play both these cards and you don't have 3 ice cards in your hand, but you can give it +6. Well, now you just gave Shiver, give it dominate, right? So you play a Blizzard Bolt into an Ice Quake into a Weave, or these 2 into a Blizzard Bolt, and all of a sudden you're hitting for 11 dominate, right? So there's definitely things you can do with this that I think you're basically guaranteeing on hit effects, and you're going to guarantee a lot of disruption with your opponent, and it's going to hit every time, right? And I'm just thinking about this for where the meta is going. Again, the meta is going into a high control, high mid range kind of build, and I think that being able to guarantee your attacks hitting, and Oldheim can't just cover you up every single turn, or any control or mid range deck, even like a dash or something like that, can't cover you up every turn, is really going to help, right? And the last thing I wanted to talk about is the lightning cards. I'm this build that I'm going to be running. I'll do a deck tech on it here soon, probably this week. Is I'm running about 75% ice, maybe, or 80% ice, 20% lightning. And the lightning cards that I run is obviously your Pulse Volhaven. It's a lightning card as well. But running lightning press and electrify, right? Because if I flip electrify and arsenal, my next attack gets go again. Now I can play it, draw a card. So now I just drew a card that might be another arrow, or it might be more resources. And now I can load in an arrow like, maybe I have an ice card in my hand. I load in a Blizzard Bolt, give it dominate, and now I can shoot Blizzard Bolt. Maybe I had a pump prior to, so I'm shooting for 5 or 8 dominate, um, fused, and it's going to deal 3 additional damage, and it has go again. So now all of a sudden I have a go again dominate arrow that's going to deal additional damage and has a fuse effect, right? You use the lightning cards to give your occasional go again. So with this deck, I'm wanting to flip electrify and lightning press in order to give my first attack go again. Electrify is going to draw me a card, right? Polar Blast is another card. It draws me a card. So I'm trying to get that draw mechanic off pretty consistently. Maybe give my attacks go again with these lightning cards and then also pump them, right? So on a normal turn, like what does all this mean, right? You're probably a lot of like discussion points I'm talking about with Shiver is what you're trying to do on a normal turn is hit for 8 to 10 dominated, with a pretty good on a hit effect. It might be one frostbite from flipping the ice card and another frostbite from the fuse mechanic. So now it's 2 frostbites on them. It might be a frostbite with a discard mechanic from Chilling Ice Vein, something along those lines, right? That's a normal turn. A great turn or a good turn is maybe you flip electrify, you play it, draw a card, then you play 3 of a kind, and now all of a sudden your first attack has go again with the 3 plus additional damage if it hits. You give it dominate, it has go again, right? And then you keep attacking, right? And so I think it's just a better way to push consistent damage. As far as the consistency, as opposed to Voltaire, that's more remain to be seen. I just really think people are downplaying Shiver. I personally would rather have in this meta right now that we're in. I don't mean in general, just in this meta that we're in. I would rather have a Lexi build that gives high dominate attacks with guaranteed on hit effects that occasionally gets go again from my electric cards or lightning cards or perch grapplers. I'd rather have like 70% dominate, 30% go again than have 70% go again, 30% dominate, right? Because if you run a ice Lexi build with Voltaire, you can run the weave ices, right? 3 to 6 of them or 6 to 9 of them. You can run the reds and yellows for sure. And if you fuse it, it gets dominates. Now has go again and dominate. But that doesn't always happen, right? So I'd rather have consistent dominate with consistent on hit effects that also can push through additional damage. And then, get go again when I can through either perch grapplers or through, flipping the 7 lightning cards I have in my deck. Because right now in this deck, I'm going to run three red electrifies, 3 lightning presses, and 1 pulse of Volhaven. So that's 7 electric cards. So I'll get the occasional go again, and I also can use my perch grapplers if needed. But overall, like the point of this video is really just I think Voltaire is a better bow for sure, but I think Shiver is a more consistent bow. In today's meta, I think with the high control, high mid range meta that we're going to go into, unless Everfest completely flips us on our heads, I really think that Shiver has a good place in the meta for where we're at right now. And I think it's worth a try. Again, I'm going to do more testing on my own. I'm not going to come here and definitively say Shiver is better, use Shiver over Voltaire every time. I'm just saying that I think Shiver now in today's meta has more of a place than it did prior to the aggro meta that we had a couple weeks ago. Again, we're going to control and mid range, and I think Shiver may be better for against those type of builds, because you're not going to have to keep up with as much tempo as you did before. And also with Shiver, you can do a lot of disruption, prior to your attack. I mean, on a good turn, you use you play a Polar Blast out of Arsenal, you pitch, you draw a card, you play a Winter's Bite. Now all of a sudden you just made them discard a card. Your card's probably going to have dominate. You give it +1, then you have a fuse effect. It's on hit. So now you just made your opponent get rid of 2 cards, and you're hitting them for 8 to 10 damage, dominate with on hit effect. I mean, that's just insane. Even if it's a good control Oldheim, they're going to have trouble blocking you out. So that's just my thoughts on it. I would love to know your thoughts and what you all think. I know the video is a little haphazard with the thoughts and what I'm saying, but it's more of a discussion video. It's not more of a do this type video. I always like to yeah, you know, there's other great players out there. I'm not the best player in the world, so I would really love to know what you all think about the video and what you all think about Shivir versus Voltaire and your experiences. Because so far with my testing against this meta, what limited I've done, I think Shiver has a place. It just you have to build around it properly. Yeah, let me know what you think of the video. Let me know if you completely disagree with me. If you say Shiver is terrible, use Voltaire every time. Totally fine. I want to hear it. I would love to know some experienced Lightning and Ice Lexi players that use Voltaire and give me your thoughts on it. But if you like this video, leave a like, comment, subscribe. If you didn't like this video, still, you can dislike, you can comment, you can do whatever you want to do. It's totally fine. Go to another Flesh and Blood creator, do the same thing for them. Give them a like, comment, subscribe so you can get more people playing and seeing this game. But yeah, I'll talk to y'all next time on TCG Talk. I'll probably do a deck tech on what I think would be the best deck with this type of build with Shiver. And yeah, I'll talk to y'all soon and hope y'all have a good rest of your week.